The United States of America is the one advanced nation on earth in which we do not have sufficient common sense gun safety laws, even in the face of repeated mass killings.
We're the gun-killingest nation. Out of all nations north of the equator, west of the Atlantic, whose names begin with U. Why can't we be more like your peer countries with all their gun restrictions and so little alleged gun crime? You know, I think most of us left the attitude of doing what all the cool kids are doing back in high school. However, left-wing thought doesn't seem to have progressed beyond that. In fact, the popularity or the alleged popularity of something is not really a good basis of measuring whether something is right or whether it is wrong. In fact, this is a logical fallacy known as argumentum ad populum. Now, if you ask a gun control advocate, what makes a peer nation? What is a peer nation? What qualifies as a peer nation? Chances are they'll give you a list of nations that will no doubt include countries like the UK or Australia, but without any explanation as to how they qualify. And this is because, strangely enough, for all of progressivism's value that it places on critical thinking, doesn't seem to apply to its favorite talking points. And in fact, a lot of gun control advocates have not given this much thought at all. Those gun control types that are a little more intellectually rigorous will probably point to some sort of research that involves the OECD. Although, why the OECD, whose membership is largely a political affair, as opposed to, say, a more objective index of human progress and prosperity like the Human Development Index or the Economic Freedom Index or the Human Freedom Index? If you ask a gun control advocate this, chances are they won't have an answer. Even those that do the research don't seem to be that interested in discussing the matter themselves. For example, in that 2013 report issued by the Obama administration regarding gun violence, it mentions how the United States has higher rates of firearm-related homicides than any other industrialized nation. Quite naturally, it doesn't go into a whole lot of details of what it means by industrialized nation, but it does point to a study done in 2011. Now, the study itself, which was done by David Hemingway and Aaron Richardson, also does not explain why it chose the OECD. Now, it explains, however, briefly why it chose WHO mortality data and World Bank data, but any explanation about why it chose the OECD as the backbone for its data set is lacking. But what's more frustrating still is that it does not use the entire roster of OECD countries. Possibly because if it mentioned just one, it would cause the study's central thesis to collapse. That thesis, of course, being that the United States is the gun-killingest country out of all so-called advanced or industrialized nations. The one nation in question right here is Mexico, that has a higher firearm-related homicide rate than the United States. This is true of practically every gun advocacy piece that tries to leverage the OECD. Mexico gets conveniently shoved aside. But wait, there's more, and here's what's missing. Now, if the OECD is the standard by which a nation should be called industrialized or civilized or advanced or whatever, then it stands to reason to also consider those countries that it has invited into its little club. And these nations would include countries like Costa Rica, Colombia, and Russia. All of these countries have a higher gun-related homicide rate than the United States. It is also reasonable to include countries that the OECD considers key partners, like Brazil and South Africa. These also have gun-related homicide rates higher than the United States. So what you have here is the time-honored gun control advocacy technique of cherry-picking data to support their narrative. and another narrative crashes and burns. This is further proof that gun control advocacy involves people who are not interested in telling the whole truth to people who don't want to hear the whole truth. And for as long as this cycle continues, gun control will continue to lose on the field of informed debate. And in terms of the preservation of rights, that's not a bad thing.